Late last year, the Charlotte Regional Realtor Association's Education Advisory Group identified educating realtors about lease purchase and rental listings as an important topic. As you'll see, there are more and more lease purchase and rental listings being entered in the system. And we suspect there are quite a few agents who aren't property managers but are inputting their listings. There was some concern about this session that a session about lease purchase and rental listings would appear as if we're promoting lease purchase and rental listings. Actually, the purpose of this event is to raise awareness about potential difficulties. We're not trying to promote lease purchase and rental listings, but we're also not trying to discourage them. Our goal is to equip you with the information you need to represent your clients in a professional and ethical manner. I've been asked to pull up a couple of numbers, some statistics from our system to get us started. As you see, there's been an increase in the number of lease purchase listings entered in the MLS. From 2007 to 2008, there was an 84% increase, so nearly double. And that number stayed high in 2009. The same trend or similar trend we see in the number of rental listings being entered. From 2007 to 2008, there was a 47% increase in the number of rental listings, and that number increased to an additional 13% to 2008. All right, taking a closer look at the rental listings, this was a snapshot taken January 7th, 2010, so just a couple of weeks ago. There were 2,328 available rentals in the Tempo system on January 7th. Those 2,328 available rentals were listed by 671 unique agents. Of those, 1,460 listings are by 87 agents with 5 or more listings. We made an assumption that if an agent had 5 or more rental listings, then they're most likely a property manager and they're using the standard exclusive property management agreement. We've made 2 assumptions with these slides, and that was the first one. I'll take the second one shortly. The remaining 868 available rentals are listed by 584 unique listing agents with fewer than 5 rental listings. So 868 rentals listed by agents who have fewer than 5 rental listings. Our assumption here was that if an agent has fewer than 5 rental listings, they're probably not the property manager and are likely not using the exclusive property management agreement. Of those, 468 are also listed under single-family and condo townhouse. So the 868, 486 are listed both in the rentals category and in the condo, or in the single-family or condo townhouse categories. And we know that there's an addendum to the exclusive right to sell listing agreement that was implemented in 2009 called the Agreement to Procure Tenant. These listings are most likely in compliance with our requirements. The last section is where we have a cause for concern. There are 382 available rentals listed by agents who are probably not property managers with no corresponding listing under the single-family or condo townhouse categories. This raises a few questions. What type of listing agreement are these agents using? Do these agents know how to handle rental listings? What level of service do the landlords for these listings expect? I don't have the answers to these questions, but regardless of how you feel about lease purchase and rental listings, whether they're good or bad, it's a market reality. We've invited panelists here to help bring light to some of the issues surrounding lease purchase and rental listings. Your next speaker will be Frazier Wallace.
Everyone hear me out there? Good morning. My name is Frazier Wallace. I'm a lawyer with the law firm of Doyle and Wallace. Some of y'all might have been the former name of the firm. This is the same firm that my good friends Chris Layton and Kevin Rady started back in the day. It used to be Rady and Layton, and then we had Rady, Layton, and Doyle, and then we had Rady and Doyle, and then recently Doyle and Wallace. including myself on the top of the name there. Just by a show of hands, how many people have gotten a call about a lease purchase recently? Wow, okay, that's what I expected. I was telling a colleague of mine the other day, I said, 4 years ago, if someone would have asked me to be on a panel about lease purchases, the first thing I would have said is absolutely. The second thing I would have done was Google lease purchases. I just didn't see them. When the market was good, these creative ways of doing transactions just aren't there. At the end of the day's presentation, what I hope you guys as agents walk away with is enough knowledge, armed with enough knowledge to advise your client effectively on the pros and cons of this transaction, the risk involved in this transaction, and at the same time limit your liability as an agent involved in this transaction. Because it's just so tricky. These things are not simple transactions, and I'll reiterate that throughout my presentation here. Each one is unique. In my opinion, there's not a form out there yet that's going to suffice for any sort of lease purchase. You've got to have, each one is negotiated out at each point. And that way, and that's where I come into play. If you want to call me, I can help you out with that. So my presentation has 3 points, 3 parts. The first is I'm going to describe what a lease purchase is and how it's different from some of the other alternative transactions that are out there. Then I'm going to talk about some drafting points, just a few of them. They're not, it's not all of them that I use. It's just kind of the skeletal drafting points, things I think need to be in every single lease purchase. And then I'm going to discuss kind of the pros and cons of a lease purchase and why it might be good for your client to do one, or it might be bad for your client to do one. So let's jump right into this. Let's see here if I can work this. We're not going to this. All right. So first I'm just going to define what a lease purchase is. The actual term, the full name of it is called a lease and an agreement to purchase. I just call it a lease purchase. It's just easier to say. There's a legal definition, and the legal definition is it's an agreement whereby the buyer is going to be a tenant, and they're going to be obligated to purchase this property from the seller, who's going to be a landlord, during the term of a lease. So the legal title to the property doesn't transfer until closing, and that might be, we'll talk about it a little bit later, that might be 1 year down the road, 2 years, 3 years, whatever they're agreeing to. So it's one agreement composed of 2 parts. First is the lease and agreement. That's the one that's the lease part of this transaction. The second part is the offer to purchase and contract, the standard form that you fill out, and both of them are signed together contemporaneously at the same time, at the same table. And then there's a practical definition. And the practical definition is it's just an alternative transaction to try to accomplish the same thing as a straight purchase, which is getting the title from the seller to the buyer and everybody walking away happy at the end of the day. There are likely 2 situations where you're going to find a lease purchase applicable. The first one, which I think we probably all see, is where the buyer cannot qualify for a loan at the time. Likely his or her credit is not good. And the second situation, which I've had a few experiences with, is where you've got an out-of-state client moving to Charlotte or wherever here around Charlotte, and they need to get into this house. They found a house they like. They need to get in the house. They need to get their kids in school. They need to start their job, but they can't carry 2 mortgages. So they want to get in, do a lease purchase, wait for that house to sell in Ohio, and then purchase this property. I see a lot more of the first one where there's a credit issue. So what's the difference between a lease purchase and a lease agreement with an option to purchase? And this is the first slide here. The lease with an option is similar, only it doesn't obligate the buyer to buy the property at the end of the term. It just says the buyer has the option to purchase that property at the end of the term. Whereas the lease purchase says buyer is agreeing to buy the property at the end of the term pursuant to the term